Welcome to this art video. I'll be showing you my entire process for this oil pastel painting. From mounting paper onto panel to color sketches and then all the layering and blending. Grab your beverage of choice. For me, there's a coffee counter in this video. And your own creative project. And let's start. It's the weekend, and I'd been working on ideas for a Greek mythology-inspired painting. Earlier this year, I'd painted this portrait of Arachne, and I really enjoyed the more abstract elements combined with the portrait painting. So this new painting is a companion piece to that one, and maybe it will even turn into a proper series over time. After some very rough doodles done digitally, I looked through my reference photography collection to find a pose and expression that would fit what I had in mind. Over the last 2 years, I've accumulated a lot of gorgeous reference photography, and while I do take my own pictures as well, for portraits, I could never reach the professional lighting a studio setting provides. It's important to me to have the creative rights to any reference material I use, so I don't base my art on pictures I just randomly find online. You can find some reference recommendations in the description below. I had a couple of options, but decided to go with a pose that fit a horizontal format. I had the vague idea of including some woven tapestry patterns in the hair, and the horizontal format left me more room to explore that. Are you a spontaneous artist? Do you just sit down in front of an empty canvas or paper and start drawing? Because I'm the exact opposite of that. While some of my art ideas of course happen spontaneously, I'm in love with the process of developing them into something maybe more complex or more fully formed. You might have guessed that this is showing the myth of Arachne, the weaver who, after a weaving competition with Athena, got turned into a spider. I wanted to play around with the spiderweb motif as a part of her hair, as she gets entangled and caught up in the games of the gods. Again, I'm not spontaneous. I plan my art quite a lot. This graphite figure study is probably as spontaneous as it gets for me, as I just suddenly decided that I liked it so much, I wanted to turn it into a proper painting. I had to look up how to transfer the drawing, which I'd done on Fabriano drawing paper, onto an A4 cradled wooden board. While it's recommended to do this after the painting or drawing is finished, I was worried I'd mess up the process. And so I would rather fail at gluing an unfinished sketch to the panel than destroying a finished piece later on. I used golden soft gel gloss applied to the wooden panel, and to my surprise it all went pretty smoothly. I used a white synthetic brush to spread out the gel, and it was less hectic than expected, as the gel dries pretty slowly, so I had enough time to make sure everything was smooth and every area of the panel covered. Most of my focus was on the edges, as I was scared of those detaching, especially, and I wanted a clean finish. When choosing your paper, it's actually recommended to use a format slightly larger than the panel and cut off the overlapping edges later with a cutting knife. As I'd already finished my drawing, I was stuck with A4. But at the same time, I also had more confidence when it comes to placing this drawing precisely where it needs to be than I had in myself when it comes to using a paper cutter without damaging anything. But your mileage may vary and you might prefer using a larger sheet of paper and cutting it down to size after the mounting is finished. I used a clean t-shirt rag to smooth out air bubbles. If your drawing is done in charcoal or even soft graphite or pencils, this might smudge the lines, of course, so be careful. Or, like me, apply a layer of fixative spray before starting this whole process. Once everything looked smooth, I placed a few heavy books on top and gave it overnight to dry. So I'm a bit of an idiot and didn't paint the edges before mounting it, because I honestly just assumed I'd fail and would end up with just a paper, gel and wooden mess. But it worked out, so I did paint the edges. I'm lucky because I plan on working with oil pastels on this, so those are opaque, I can paint over. But if you work with watercolors, or if you maybe just want to add a finished drawing, don't do what I did. The drawing itself is kind of ready to go. I did use fixative, but it honestly doesn't matter all that much. I wouldn't mind if it smudges a little bit. I'm ready for this to be a bit messy. It doesn't have to go into a scanner at the end of the week and look good digitally or anything like that. I can just do whatever I want and we'll see how that goes. It's very weird to me. I'm not the kind of person that can just open a sketchbook page and dive in with brushes or take out a canvas and get started. I'd be very curious to hear about like your process, if you're always spontaneous, if you always plan ahead, or if you're a third secret thing. The perfect balance of both. I'm using my table easel like this, just to have a nice angle to work at. I'm ready to go. The Mungyo oil pastels are applied messily at this stage, with a cross-hatching approach that would work for colored pencils too. They only really become oily when applied with more pressure, or in multiple layers. So this is the best time to try out colors and change my mind about them, mixing something else on top. Some other supplies I have ready is just the blending stumps and the sandpaper to clean them. The most disgusting rag. This has been through a lot. In Korea, they do sell the Mungyo pastels separately as single sticks, so I can like just select the colors I want. So some more pastel hues in here ready to go. And that's pretty much it. The first color layer was mostly me figuring out the exact shades I wanted. But more even than the colors, I wanted to make sure the values were consistent. I had done those color sketches in the beginning, so I knew I wanted most of the contrast to be from her pale complexion to the dark hair surrounding her, and that bright red backlight shining through the hair framing her. By the way, if you notice that the reference photograph and her actual face have not that much in common, that's correct. I often use my references mostly to get the pose right, to see how light hits a face or hair, but then I like to draw the face and expression differently to fit the painting I had in mind. This one is actually a lot closer to the reference than what I usually do, but still I wanted to point it out. References are incredibly helpful, but they don't have to be followed exactly. They're a guideline and make it easier to develop the ideas I have in mind. With blending stamps, it feels like I activate that first layer of oil pastels by dragging the oil and pigments around. What looked dry moments ago becomes a soft creamy texture, but precise enough to define details like hair strands or eyes. So it's later in the afternoon. I quite like the muted colors so far and the bit of texture I'm getting out of it. I still need to do a lot of layering because this paper, it's sketching paper, so it's not made for oil pastel blending. Overall, I'm enjoying how spontaneous this feels because there's no color mixing involved. I can just look at my box, pick out a shade that I like, layer it on top of other colors to get some blending and mixing going, but it feels very intuitive, and I think that's nice for a break in between more controlled paintings. I have been using a lot of my bonus colors, by the way. They are part of the 128 color set, I think that's how many are in there. I got them separately, just specific shades, as I wanted more muted greens, more muted browns, that kind of stuff. Because I'm using all of the grays here, but generally this is a muted painting, so the extra colors are coming in very handy. Do you sometimes feel like your skills and what you want to paint are at different points? I constantly seem to be going back and forth. I'm either inspired to paint something that feels beyond my skill level and would need more practice first, or when I've practiced and feel ready, then I suddenly want to try something even larger or more complex. I think what I often lack is consistency. While I do have the excuse of client work that just takes up a lot of my time and requires some style shifts, most of that is just me getting distracted by new shiny toys or art styles. But at the same time, Trying new things always teaches me skills I didn't know I was missing, or forces me out of my comfort zone to try new color palettes or styles. I've really enjoyed these experiments with oil pastels lately, but I should get back to some other paintings and maybe develop a more consistent direction. On top of that, I really want to try to paint larger, which oil pastels aren't the most natural fit for. I love painting this and will definitely paint more sketches and smaller studies in oil pastels, but also need to kick myself in the butt and focus more. How do you feel? Do you also often avoid painting something because you're scared you might fail? Do you have any projects you want to tackle but feel like you need more practice first? The green colors took over the piece. Makes for a nice contrast with the red. You can maybe see that I mostly use the Mungyo oil pastels first to create the colors I want, and then layer the Rubens oil pastels on top for a creamier, softer blending experience. I also use some impasto technique towards the end. Using a blending stump, I scraped off bits of the Rubens oil pastels to then apply them to the painting as if with a palette knife. From this distance, it looks like barely anything changed, but I did work on the face for pretty much an hour. The face, the hair, some light effects. It is a bit limiting that I have to really work from left to right. I'm used from acrylics that everything just dries pretty much immediately and I can rest my hand on the painting. I can go back and forth. I've also been using this, balance it here and put my hand on it without touching the painting itself. So all in all, it is a tiny bit awkward. I'm not yet used to it. Let's see if I can actually finish it tonight. Thank you so much for joining me on this painting journey. I'm honored and happy to say that this little painting is part of a duo of my works, the Arachne piece that I mentioned at the beginning and this one together, that is currently available at Art Major Gallery. On top of that, I'm also working on more paintings in acrylics and charcoal that will be part of their New Beginnings exhibit in September, which I'm incredibly excited for and can't wait to show you. The theme of New Beginnings also seems very fitting, as I am really trying to push my boundaries a bit, learn new skills, and hopefully really dive into larger personal pieces this year. This one felt like a step in the right direction and helped me embrace the process as it comes without overthinking every single step. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found this relaxing to watch while doing your own drawing, sketching, or any creative project. As I'm still exploring what kind of videos I want to make, what kind of art I want to show, and how I want to show it, I truly appreciate all your comments and feedback. And if you'd like to subscribe to see future videos, I'd be incredibly happy and thankful. Thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you again in my next video.